Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I am your producer, Garnett Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Taylor Middleton.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 2, episode 14 of Invisible Women in Sport. We took a short break, but we are back like we never left. I'm your host, Taylor Middleton, and today I am joined with Ayanna Tweedy, Associate Director of Athletics and SWA at Wabash College. How are you doing today, Ayanna?
Oops, she's muted.
I think she's muted.
It's okay. Okay, you can unmute now.
There we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor, for the introduction. I'm glad to be here with you all.
We are definitely glad to have you. And like I told you earlier this week, we always do an icebreaker. So last time we did rapid fire. So this time we are going to do true truth and a lie. So to get everyone acclimated and just involved, people in the chat can definitely guess what the lie is. I'll go first and then you will go after me once people guess what my lie is. And we'll just go from there. So my 2 truths and a lie is I've never broken a bone in my body. My favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate. And I applied to go to a performing arts school when I transferred to my high school. So.
You don't
2
like
people said bone. I gotta look in the chat. I'll say them again, just in case you didn't catch them, but I've never broken a bone in my body. My favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate, and I applied to go to a performing arts school when I transferred into high school.
I agree. I don't think your favorite ice cream is chocolate.
All right, after a few guesses, it is the ice cream one. I don't like chocolate ice cream at all, unless it's mixed in like something with Ben and Jerry's. But my like go-to ice cream is butter pecan, and that's gonna make me sound real old, but that is a staple for most Black women. So
that's true.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and you can go ahead and say your 2 truths and a lie, and we will get.
Awesome. I have a sister born and raised in London. My first ever car was a 1992 Ford Festiva, and I was a straight A student in elementary school.
Those are good ones. You said that real calm. I feel like it was the car.
Okay.
I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is.
When I tell you, you're gonna laugh. Okay, so Festiva, we got grades, got car. Should I say mine? Grades.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
Car. So I was not a straight A student in elementary school. I was much of an athlete, but I also had to make sure I had good grades when I had to come home. But a 1992 Ford Festiva is the same car that Jim Carrey had in Fun with Dick and Jane movie.
I gotta look that up.
Yeah, it's a hilarious classic, and it was a 5-speed. So first ever driving a stick shift car.
Oh boy!
But that was my first, and I loved it, and that was my baby.
Oh wow! All right. Well, obviously everybody's got to start somewhere. My dad had this truck, and it was stick shift, and it was purple. It was dark purple. And he used to try to get me to drive it. And I was like, that thing is a death trap. So there was no way I was wasn't going anywhere near that. But thankfully, we see that the grades was the lie. But like you said, you were an athlete. So can you just tell us what sports that you did in high school and what you eventually ended up doing when you were at Bowie?
So I was a 2-sport athlete for actually a while. I started in middle school. I was on the track and field team for my middle school team. and also played basketball. And that just transitioned when I went to high school. Upon my senior year, I wanted to make a decision of just sticking with one sport. And I stuck with women's track and field. And that's when I got more serious about just honing in on what I wanted to do. I was so focused on basketball because that just kept me conditioned throughout the years.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to be an individual. I like scoring as an individual, but still earning points as a team. But I was like, I like the personal accolades. That's just the girl in me. And that's what pushed me to be a little more active at my college search. And then on a college tour, I was able to, on a parental college tour after my mother and I went up there, was able to meet the head track and field coach, Coach Michelle Latimer, for the first time, and just immediately just fell in love with the program. And so that's how I started my roots, and that forever changed my life.
And that's great. So then can you kind of talk about your experience being at a HBCU in Bowie? I went to Pitt, so I was at a PWI, and sometimes I hear like the experiences for those athletes are a little bit different, whether you're an athlete or just a student at those colleges, just in general.
Mm-hmm. All through grade school, I went to predominantly white schools, and I saw a lot of my friends that looked like me, but the experience is so much different when you go to HBCU. The culture is different. You get to meet people from all walks of life.
Mhm.
And my professors knew me by name. And that's what I cherish more being at HBCU. I got to meet President Burnham at the time he was in as a seat of the president. And I just love the dances, the games, like the atmosphere is just so much different. You're able to get a sense of what happened during 1865 to now, like the evolution of African-American and Black education has just changed and transcended. And so every time I go on social media, my institution, my alma mater is still doing great things. That are the reason why I'm where I am right now. And one day I'm gonna get back to homecoming, but when you work in sports, it's like if you don't have one yourself in your institution, you may miss out just because football season is what it is. But it's memories that I will never forget. Long life friends I met at Bowie. And I have a lot of colleagues that work at PWIs or went there in undergrad, and they had similar experiences, but it's just your Blackness, your Black culture, and growing up those 4 years to find people that look like you to make you a better person. It's just something untouched. It's just a experience you just have to have.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When I was younger, my mom was an RA at Lincoln University. So I was like on campus. I was the mascot cheerleader because my godmom was the coach. So I used to be all over that place in everything. And my mom never had to worry because she always knew there was an adult who knew who I was and like didn't have to bother to be like, oh, where's Taylor at? Because somebody's gonna find me. But I definitely agree. Just being in that space it's so important, I think, for all Black people, especially, or just being able to have the opportunity to experience what that's like. So even with that, you doing athletics at the school, I know you kind of talked about how you ended up getting injured. So can you talk about the support you ended up getting and how that kind of transitioned you into not only coaching, but starting your career within sport with game day management as well?
I got injured a lot playing sports. I fractured a couple different things in my wrists. I tore my meniscus when I was in 6th grade, and that's another story for another time, but I was able to bounce back. When I broke my foot in college, I did not bounce back like I thought I was going to. That's also contingent on at me, the student athlete, because I should have done a lot more to rehab it, and I would have been back quicker. But that moment was when I found out that I could do so much more to support my team outside of just throwing. And I mean, I found ways to get back in student life. I became an RA too for 2 years. That allowed me to sit at the table, to be an advocate for student athletes, to provide a space where we can have a little bit more resources in our off season and give us more time to say, hey, I know we got to come back during the break, what other resources can we have to make sure that transition is seamless? So people saw me more than just an athlete. And I know we talk about identity a lot. And in that moment, I knew that even serving as the Student Athlete Advisory Committee president for my institution and the conference at the time, I could do way more. I can have more time to visit institutions and talk about how SAC can be a great asset to the institution, but also work in the athletic department. So transitioning into helping out at games, working with community partners to get them on campus. And then when I was healed, I had a different mindset. I was like, I think it's time to transition to do something else outside of competing. I did have another year to compete. Going through some staff transitions, I was able to work in the office as a compliance assistant, and I had some really great mentors that helped me along the way as I transitioned, also start graduate school. So working in compliance, started coaching my first year. Going to practice was my favorite thing to do out of the day. Meetings are wonderful. They're great. They're productive. But getting out in the dirt and playing in the rain a little bit with your throwers is better for me. And so it was a juggle. And it taught me a lot about time management. It taught me that your level of maturity has to be a little different now that you're not a student working in this space, you're a paraprofessional working in this space. So your tone has to be different. And people that may be watching this understand what that means for me. Your tone has to be different. The way you talk to certain people and approach different situations, you have to have a different lens. And it prepared me to know that you never know what someone else is going through. And I think the different positions that I had allowed different students to come to me and just have a conversation to get them through what they're going through. So being injured was a blessing, and it also showed me some areas of growth that I had to deal with, and just allowed me to have more time to do things that I love, that I have a passion for.
So I think it's good that you talked about how transitioning out of the sport in a way went a little bit better for you than maybe some other athletes. Because I know for me, like COVID knocked my season out the park, and it was my senior year, and it was kind of like a dang. I knew I was going to grad school, but like I didn't think I had to think about grad school that soon. So for you, like being able to have that an easier transition out, how was it then going into grad school for your master's program? Because you also had to make a big move. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So I thought that I was going to be the top tier mental health clinician of the world. And I was going to work with the NCAA. Like I knew that mental health counseling was what I wanted to do once I graduated. And during the first year of my graduate schooling, my father suddenly passed away in 2017. And during that time period, I was actually applying for a position at Pomona-Pinter. It aligned with what I did day to day, and didn't realize that I was actually going to get it. I have a mentor that was working for the NCAA at the time, knew who was doing the hiring, and was like, hey, shoot your shot. You got to try. So I sent my resume out, applied, and my father and I did have a conversation about it. And he told me, he said, if you get opportunity to go out there, you need to go. Nothing really holding you back here. You're always going to have a home here. You're always going to have family here, but you should go. This is a great opportunity. And so he wasn't here in order to see me get the opportunity, but that message still rings true to me to say, you know what, if you prayed about it, nothing came up for 4 months. And I was like, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I got the notice in April that they wanted to give me a phone interview, and I completely bombed my phone interview. So if anybody who knows me and I tell this story, I didn't say anything about compliance because my brain was so just wrapped around planning for a funeral. Like I had nothing else to think about. A week later, I get a call from the hiring manager, and she said, who's also my mentor, she called me and said, we want to bring you on campus. I said, what? You want to, what? So I called my aunt who's living in California. I was like, I guess I'm going to Cali. She's like, oh, you got the job. They flying you out here, you got it. So by that time, the funeral already happened. I'm preparing for an all-day interview, my first one. At this point, I just been told to bring your business cards, bring your portfolio, make sure you got a blazer, like make sure you look like you know what you're doing. So from 8 a.m. to about 5 p.m., I didn't fake it, but I put my best foot forward. My best session was with my student athletes. And when I got in that rental car, I burst into tears. Because in that moment, I knew that I had the job. Like you couldn't tell me I didn't. But everything that was building up was just, it was like relief. And more like relief and sadness and a mix of other emotions. But I took a break from graduate school when I transitioned to California. And I got my degree at Southern New Hampshire. I loved my faculty members that provided a really great online experience for me. I never thought I could do a graduate degree online, but I did it. And I traveled to New Hampshire, went through the commencement ceremony, and I felt great. It felt great to get that finally off my plate. But it was an uphill battle and a lot of family support. I'm blessed to say my village is very strong. And even though I'm a daddy's girl at heart, wasn't present, he was always there in spirit. And so each move I made, even driving through COVID to get to Indiana, I had an angel watching over me. And I think his truck driving experience was with me that day, because I don't know how I did it, but 8 states later, I made it to the other side of the country. But it was an amazing experience. Would I do it again? I would do it again. I wouldn't change anything about it. But that doesn't mean I won't get back to mental health. So I always tell people, just because you start somewhere and you had a plan, I was born to have everything from A to Z mapped out. And that God had another plan. And so I stayed obedient, followed that plan. And I believe I'm more blessed than I am now. If I didn't think I followed it. So I'm glad I followed the path that he gave me and still following it.
And that's just the way careers go. I feel like in this industry of sport, like it's a zigzag, it's never straight. So obviously you're where you're meant to be, and we're more glad to have you here. And I'm sure when you were at Pomona-Pitzer, they were glad to have you there. Yeah. But not only that, like you worked in compliance, but you also shifted over into Title IX. And I feel like Title IX has been a big topic of conversations at a lot of universities, even more recently. So can you kind of talk about the importance of having school implement Title IX kind of more seriously, and what that takes and just changes that should be made for that?
Yeah. In the short interim time that I had it, I was blessed to say that I was a part of a group of both Title IX officers for both institutions. So Pomona had one and Pitzer had one. And I was filling in big shoes, like policies were already kind of written out when I rolled into the interim position. But I realized in this seat that I am more than an advocate for the student athletes or the students that just weren't able to advocate for themselves. And I mean, outside of the policies toward sexual assault prevention, education on equity in sports, really teaching our coaches that you all are eyes and ears of your program. And when different things come up and you feel uncomfortable about reporting it, or you want the students to go first, there's someone in the gap, like I was, to say, hey, let's work that out. Let's walk that through to see who needs to know first. And I mean, we had a couple cases that once I was known of it and I departed it to who it needs to go to, I let the powers that be figure it out. Because sometimes you really need a team to kind of build those policies up and kind of work through how we can be better advocates for students in those tough situations, and more so out of my preview. Like if I don't have the education to do it, I'm not going to pretend. And that's how students get hurt on the back end. But the joys is that when students know that they have someone they can go to, they feel better. They feel like their place is safe. They know that if anything that comes up about injustice or even when it comes to inequities about just resources, like the students were felt empowered to talk about those things with SAC, myself or the AD at the time and say, how can we make this a better experience for us? We know Title IX is a sensitive topic, but how can we empower each other to actually make change? Even having the National Girls and Women in Sports Day programs and having the young girls in the community come back to campus to say, hey, you are valued in this sport. It's not always about policy and control, but also the wins in Title IX, and knowing that we can do all things. Women can be in administration. We don't just have to be behind the desk and as an assistant. No, we can lead programs, we can lead organizations. And so that was one of my favorite programs to do at the school. And even though I'm at an all-male institution, when it comes to students, I still find ways to say, how can I give back, or what can we do to bring young girls back to campus? Because they're seeing all these role models and they're like, oh, that's what I want to be. You can be that. And so as long as we continue to echo that, and keep pushing the charge. I mean, even from the WNBA, the Twitter has been a platform from all these organizations to voice that we have to continue to be a voice for the people that don't have one. So even though it was for a short stint, even serving as a senior woman administrator, you always have that one side of your brain thinking about the Title IX and how you can be better as a department. So even if the title is not there, you're still thinking about it, how your department can be better in that space.
And clearly it definitely hasn't stopped, because you've definitely been a leader within the spaces you've been in for student athlete development and DE&I. So can you kind of talk about your passion for that line of work and how that led to SEED for your student athletes?
Yeah, that initiative was it came out of a couple of different things. The former head women's basketball coach and the former and current professor emeritus tennis coach at Pomona Pitzer, we really worked hard on trying to find a space where student athletes can still grow professionally outside of the sport, but also build community with each other. And they have programs, something similar to that on campus, but we knew the student athletes, just because they are encountered with so many other things out there that non-students don't have to deal with on a day-to-day, we wanted something special for them. And so building out scenarios on how you can be a better captain, how can you use your leadership traits and skills to better your teammates. We worked on a lot of those things. Bringing in speakers that I am the first person to say, if I don't know something, I know somebody who knows it, and we're going to bring them to campus to help us out. When we took a deep dive into valuing and understanding the experiences of our LGBTQs, faculty, staff, and students, we brought in speakers that I knew from previous conferences or previous conventions and webinars to come to campus to talk about language, to talk about why it's important to have an open door policy, why it's important to have an ally sticker on your door. Because nowadays, students are not holding that in anymore. They want people to accept them for who they are. They shouldn't have to code switch. They shouldn't have to present themselves in a way that's not them. That's not love. That's not genuine. And as a leader in this space, as a coach or as an administrator, I put the ownership on you. It's your job to make them feel comfortable. And so I've always had a passion for allowing people to just be who they are. I'm going to be me. Don't expect me to change.
Right.
I'm still going to serve. I'm still going to be an intentional leader and a servant leader, but I'm also going to be Ayanna Tweedy. Like, that's just going to be who I am at my core. And so if you present to me who you are, I'm going to respect that. And I just really wanted to create an opportunity for people to have that conversation. We were able to establish the inaugural inclusion statement for that institution that really spoke to being kind, being open to everyone's backgrounds and perspectives. And even with COVID, some people say COVID was a curse. I think COVID was a blessing to say that it opened a lot of people's eyes about what a lot of our marginalized communities go through, from healthcare to just general resources day to day. And if you weren't able to turn your perspective wheel on in your mind and say, it's not just about me, it's about the people that I serve, then you missed the point. And so I wake up every day wanting to serve them. And even in this role now, Wabash, the first things that I thought of going into my first 60 days outside of the summertime, because I was living in a hotel, just meeting people through Zoom. So when we got on campus, was really being intentional of going to see my coaches. Even though we're distance and mask, we can still have virtual conversations. And we started bi-weekly lunch and learns to talk about what's been going on. What are our student athletes hearing? How can we better serve them and start these tough conversations? How do we talk about race and not feel like our hair is sticking on the back of our necks? And the coaches that came, it may not have been all of them, but the coaches that did come, that gave input or just listened, still added value into that space. And they needed to know that. But outside of that, being intentional and not just checking the box. And I knew for me, I knew my reasoning why I wanted to continue to do these programs. It was because students should have the right to play a sport, no matter their lifestyle, no matter what they look like, no matter where they came from, but also not just check the box and say, well, we did this, so we should be good. It should be a continued conversation. It's not a trend. It's not something you see for one day and it goes away. People are, I'm not going to use the word suffering, but people are dealing with so many things daily, and they should have a space on campus where they feel like it's a safe haven for them to go to. And they should know that their administration, their coaches have their back.
And that's definitely something I think that's becoming more implemented, and especially in a lot of athletics programs more recently, just with new DE&I initiatives and just groups that they're having. But obviously, like, you can do all that work, and then at the end of the day, you're still a Black woman. Like, you can't take your skin off. So what are some challenges that you faced in your time through your journey in this industry of sport, and how did you overcome some of those challenges?
Yes. Ageism has always been I wouldn't say a battle. I'll just say a pothole. It's annoying. It messes up your mood because when you hit it, you got an attitude. And I've ran into some interesting conversations where people stop talking to me. They will disregard my emails. They would kind of just brush me off like my statement didn't have value, or they would repeat what I said because they felt like what they said was more valuable, and it's the same daggone thing. When it used to bother me, it really did. And now it doesn't, because those same people that had those same issues are still the same people that work for me. And even I don't like that phrase, because some people like that hierarchy. We work together. We're working together for a common goal. And so when ageism and just really the color of my skin, like you said, like I'm never going to be ashamed of who I am. I know who and what my roots are. And if you come to work with a chip on your shoulder because the person you work with is Black, that's your problem. That's not my problem. So I've had conversations with students about this, that no matter where you go, I'm always going to at least give you a reality to say, hey, this is what it might be on campus. That's not what it is in the world. And we have to be okay with having those conversations with our Black and brown students. Some people may not like you because you have this accolade or you're excelling faster than them. That's not your problem, though. You continue to excel and do what you need to do to get toward the seat you want to be in. But for me, I just stopped thinking about it, because when I start thinking about what other people's insecurities are, I forget my goal and my passion. And I waste time, not spend time, waste time trying to make them feel better. You should be great to be in my presence. Oh, but seriously, I always tell people, just continue to be your authentic self. You shouldn't be ashamed of your roots or where you come from, who brought you up in this field. Because at the end of the day, Black women are always going to have to work harder than the next person. That just is what it is. Everything we tweet to what we wear, we're always going to be picked on, brought up to the table. And for what? Because they have nothing else to talk about. So I'm going to let people continue to talk, and I'm going to continue to go up. What was Michelle Obama's statement? When they go low, you go high. Yeah, I'm gonna go higher because I don't have time to sit here and wonder why they don't like me. That's wasting my time. I got money to make. But anyway, but yes, I mean, those were the two, but I just try to be the best version of me. That's really it.
And obviously we love that, having you here. We definitely feel that authenticity from you. And we're coming up on our last question. So for the audience, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat for the Q&A after with Garnett. Again, thank you, Ayanna, for being here with us today. And to kind of end us off with the question I normally ask, what's just some advice that you can give to women who are looking to enter into this industry soon?
Speaking on being authentic, never change who you are just to make somebody else feel good. And I've said this in the couple seconds ago. That's really just the best advice that I can give. I spent a lot of time focusing on, should I change my outfit? Should I change my hair? I've changed my hair numerous times over the years because it just felt comfortable to me. But I'm not trying to make you feel comfortable because you don't like the way I look. So being your authentic self, being okay to be vulnerable, and everybody has their feelings about vulnerability. For me, I've seen it as a plus for me when I am more open with my staff to an extent, because if we all have boundaries, when I'm more open with my staff, they're able to access a piece of me that allows them to connect more with me. So always show up, be your authentic self, and give yourself some grace. No one's asking you to take the world on your back, but give yourself some grace in the times where you're battling something at home or at work. Give yourself some grace to take a time out. And then when you get yourself together, you beat your face, like get your face together so you can show yourself off, and then step out in the world. But never change who you are.
Well, thank you so much, Ayan, and I'm sure people are going to really appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and drop it off to Garnett for the Q&A. And again, for our audience, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat for Ayanna.
Ayanna, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Like, I'm over here like having a great time. So lots of good words of wisdom that you've dropped on us. And so thank you for that. We talked yesterday, and I know it's kind of been a rough week. We have those weeks sometimes. So you said something that I hope this makes you smile. I'm going to show this to everyone. How you like that?
Yep, that's it. But it was blue.
Blue. I started to put the blue one on there. And at the bottom, that was the car that Jim Carrey drove. That's the actual car. So
oh man, yeah. And if you went over 60 miles, the car would start rattling. So you were in that 50 to 55.
That was part of the safety mechanisms.
Oh, but it got me to school, so that's all I care about.
All right. Well, we do have a few questions for you in the chat. The first one comes from our very own graduate assistant, Olivia Wiggins, and this sounds like a GA question for a GA that's getting ready to graduate. And her question is what do you wish you could tell your 24-year-old self?
Please don't rush to grow up. Just take steps. Oh man. Yeah. It is okay to have a plan, but if your plan goes off the edge of the mountain, literally the mountain, and it just kind of like falls into pieces, don't give up on your dream. My plans clearly diverted into a different direction, and I had to continue to find things that just made me feel valuable and I had a passion for. So if it was leadership development, giving back to the community, I was always still able to work and move and find things that brought me joy. And so don't grow up too fast, because paying a mortgage is not fun. And don't be afraid to try things new if you go off your path. I wish I would have tried a little bit more instead of like diving completely in being administration. I'm still a goofball at heart. And so if I wanted to have more free time on the weekends. Maybe being in an administrative spot may not be the spot for you just yet, but take some time and go explore the world or do something different, and safely, because it's COVID, but do something different before you kind of like move completely into a full-time job. Because once you start, it's like you can't keep this. It's like you got to find and plan ways to have a vacation. Right now, you got some time to plan one without hard deadlines or things to take your time. So those were a couple nuggets, but yes, don't rush. Take some time, celebrate yourself, and give yourself some flowers each day while you have time before you gotta get so ingrained with work.
Great advice. Great. I wish I had taken more time myself. This question comes from our very own Matt Edelson. And Matt is asking, what are some of the comments you hear from students knowing that you've created safe spaces for so many different communities?
They tell me everything. And what I mean everything, they kind of just, they know my door is open. They just kind of walk in. So you got a minute? Sure. The seat is open. Give me something that I can digest. Don't give me anything too hard. But it just created an open door policy. Like I'm a walking open door policy. They smile more. I know them by name, and it gives me opportunity to just check on them when I know that they're not in a good space, or when they're like ignoring me. I was like, hey, I'm just checking in on you. I haven't seen you in a while. Let me know what's going on. So it gave me just more eyes and more names to name, and just saying, hey, I'm not trying to be your mother. I'm not trying to pry. But we haven't talked in a while. So even if it's talks on the football field or in the pool, that allowed me to see them in their element too. And they're so grateful to know that Miss Tweedy also been an athlete, so she knows the woes and the highs that I go through. So yeah, it makes the experience so much better. Whatever spot I land, if it's a commissioner, AD, or wherever, I never not want to have time for my student athletes. So it's either between 4 and 6 or noon to 2. Like I want some time to be with the students I serve. So yeah, sometimes I'm like, I just open the door way too much. I need to crack it just a little bit, kind of ease in the conversation. Oh, but they're all respectful, like gratefully nothing off the wall that I can't repeat out loud. But for the most part, it also brings a level of trust, in that they know that they trust me. They have a friend in me, and that when they graduate, they come back and we catch up. So that's the best part.
That is awesome. So fulfilling when you see them grow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. This question comes from Sydney Moment, and Sydney is saying, how have you maintained confidence in your skills and abilities as you've moved up in your career?
I had to I build a trusted circle of mentors of all ages to really pour into me, and I poured into them back, and just created a transparency, I guess a transparent space to say, hey, if I'm doing something wrong, tell me in the moment, or pull me to the side. And when I found that more and more people trusted my abilities, or gave me the opportunity to speak by myself, or they teach me something here and they let me kind of say, okay, now is your time to grow, go and be great. That allowed me to say, okay, I can do this. You're never going to be under your supervisor for long, but when you emulate some of the things that you like from them, to me, that's shown that I've just gained more confidence. Being able to present, this was something that I actually had a hiccup on, presenting at compliance meetings by myself. I used to have really bad nerves, and it was so weird. I was like, why am I nervous? I've been doing this for about 2 years now. But when you know in your mind that you want to make your supervisor or your mentor proud, another level of anxiety kind of builds up. But I also knew that if they didn't say anything, that means I did good. Okay, here we go. Just keep trucking along. But also daily affirmations. Because I know this is broadcast, I won't say the ones that I say, but I will say the clean ones, that I am smart, I am bold, I am beautiful, I am worth it. And the people that I work with, if they know that about me, then they will also know that they're worth it too. No matter if you're male, female, non-binary, like I'm going to still boost you up. I'll be your biggest cheerleader because somebody was my biggest cheerleader. So having a really good network of people, having a split of people that are very honest with me, to some people that are like, we're honest, but we don't want to make you feel like, oh, a little defeated, but just like, here's a better way to try. I have some army men in my family, so I can take a hit. I can take some strong words of encouragement, but then you want somebody with a little lighter tone. I can do both. So, and I had to have both to be the person I am now. So having a good network, having daily aspirations and reminding yourself you got this, and knowing that nothing's too hard. I mean, when my father passed, that was pits. Like if I got through that and I'm still getting through this day 4 years later, I can get through anything. I'm not going to tread on the small stuff. We can get through it. It's nothing too big that we can get through. So yeah, those are my three for that.
That's awesome. I took notes. So Sydney, I hope you took some notes too. That was great. We have a question from, and I apologize now if I mispronounce the name, Inigo Elordi. The question is how did you overcome those situations where people would not give your statements and your work the same importance as someone else's? Great question.
Kept doing what I was doing. I was not going to let somebody steal my flowers or my thunder because they felt inadequate about their decision making or their doing. I just kept being me. I kept showing up. That's one thing that I've learned each day. Well, actually, I learned it earlier on in my career. If you show up every day, put a smile on your face, wear your best outfit, and do good work, people are going to see it. And those same people that are talking about you in the meeting after the meeting, or having those extra layers of emphasis through their emails, those are not the people that's going to hire you. They're the people that you're going to work with, or they're going to work for you, but those ain't the people that are going to hire you. And so I just reminded myself that this is just a little anthill. It's going to water away. They're not going to matter. And then this is the Sherelle side of me. They're going to need me before I need them. Mm-hmm. And never let nobody take you out your comfort zone. Never let nobody take you off your beat. I always listen to music going into my office. And as soon as I feel like somebody is like treading on it, nope, we're going to go the other direction. Let's change our focus. Let's get back to the mission of the team. So I can't let the small stuff bother me no more. And everything in my past has made me stronger. To the people that didn't open the door, that God knew we don't want that door open anyway, he opened more doors for me that I was supposed to walk into. So if I worried so much on what happened or what didn't happen with X person and how they treated me, that was just going to keep me down. I got to keep moving.
That's great. Ayanna, thank you so much for being with us today. That was the last question in the chat, but there is one comment. There's quite a few comments, so read them if you can. But one just stood out. This is from Brianna Smith. She doesn't have a question. She just said, just proud of my big sissy.
I am proud of her.
Oh man, she also said, act like you belong and they'll treat you like you do. And Candace also said she liked that. I also like that. So
yep.
I'm going to write that on a sticky note. Because they say you got to write stuff out now and look at it all the time.
There you go.
Thank you so much for being here with us today, Ayanna. We really appreciated everything you said. Sydney Strong just said, proud of my mentor. We have a lot of people in the chat saying just how great you've been to them or how much they appreciated hearing from you today. So really just thank you for being here with us and giving us a little bit of your time.
I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you for providing a space for women to speak their truth and be who they are and be their authentic self. Y'all are doing great work. And I can't wait to see the next one.
Well, we're going to close out now so we can introduce our next episode. So tune in on September 9th at 2 p.m. for episode 15. We will have Ashley Jocelyn, Chief of Staff for Louisiana Tech University Athletics. Also, please follow us at Institute SSJ on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for all of our platforms. And then also, we are a nonprofit organization. We thank you guys for supporting Invisible Women in Sport. So please use the QR code to support us with a financial gift as we continue to change lives through the power of sport. Thank you. Also, I'm your host, Taylor Middleton. Thank you to our guest, Ayanna Tweedy, our producer, Garnett L. Overby III, our senior advising consultant, Matt Edelson, our graduate assistants with our extended list for our new cohort, Larissa Campello, Maya King, Candace Martin, Iane Miranda, and Olivia Wiggins, and our blog writer, Kennedy Collins. Again, special thank you to everyone that supports Invisible Women in Sport, and we would love to keep having you here with us today. Again, please follow us on all social media platforms, and if you would like to listen again, we are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify at Institute SSJ. And lastly, just like any other time, we do need your feedback, viewers, for Invisible Women in Sports so we can make it the best it can be. Following today's episode, you will receive a short survey. Please complete it and submit it back to us. And also, we are still getting inquiries about connections to internships. So for any of our supporters or members that have internships available, please send your information to our producer, Garnett Overby, at goverby@ucf.edu so we can send it to the people reaching out to us. Again, tune in on September 9th at 2 p.m. for episode 15 with Ashley, and I'm your host for Invisible Women in Sport Zoomcast. See us now.